everyone. Again, we are back. Myself, MaryKim and Debbie Dowling Waba. I always get it mixed up. She's my partner in crime here, but we're not hurting anyone. We're actually breaking stigmas, right? Around mindset, about breaking the stigmas and the misunderstanding of what mental health is about. So I'm super excited. We host this space every Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern across multiple platforms with the Mom Link. So stay connected. And if you want to join us one Monday, just tap into us. We want to just spread the word, spread the awareness. And what can you bring to the table to our audience that we can just continue to breaking stigmas, bring up subjects that people don't want to talk about? This is what we do here. We're excited. I have a history with around mental health. And it started in my early 20s when my brother, who's about a year older than I am, was literally dropped off at my front door to my new home with my new fiance, basically saying, he is your brother. We don't know what to do with him. He is yours. And my brother at the time was diagnosed with multiple mental illnesses. I was in my early 20s. And what do? 30-something years later, I'm a huge advocate around the mental health space. What happens when people are diagnosed with mental health, only from my own experience and what I've learned from his doctors and his teams and my own research. So it's so important because even though my family, people that I know around me understand where it stemmed from a traumatic situation that happened in his childhood, there's still a lot of stigmas because of self-medication and all these things. So this is why I'm a huge advocate. And I get to host the space with Debbie every week. So Debbie, take it away.
Well, I'm an advocate because since my early 20s, have been dealing with anxiety. And for me, I was always kind of pushed to the side. Nobody wanted to talk about it. And then I just decided that I needed to be that person that I wish I had through my journey of anxiety. And this way here, I can help others, but also normalize the conversation around it, because I know that once I started opening up to my friends and everybody that this is what I'm going through, it took away that anxiety of hiding the anxiety. So it just made things easier. Now they understand different things and why I react in certain ways, or why I may, just kind of go sit off in a corner somewhere, or just say, okay, time for me to go, bye. But yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I really feel own who we are, right? And as we get to know and understand like what makes us function better, how we react and what's behind it, we give ourselves so much power, right? But not only for ourselves, just like you shared, Debbie, we give it to other people because not many people are able to go in deep. Not many people are in safe spaces where they feel that they can go into deciding and figuring out who they are. And so what you do, Debbie, what I do, what many other people do is just allow that little space to let others know it's okay. You'll still be safe. If not, like, I get you, right? Tap into me. I'm exactly like you. And so I love that we get to do this together. And I'm excited about today. We're talking about how your setbacks actually are growth opportunities, especially in your mindset. And I looked up I Googled this morning, like, where's the growth mindset? What are the stigmas around it? And a lot of things, or the myths, no, I can't even talk today. Only Monday. Usually by this time on Friday, I'm like slurring my words. The myths around, what can I say that word? Around mental health, right? The growth mindset. And for a very long time, people believe that you were born. Oh my gosh. I can't. Oh, okay.
You got marbles in your mouth Monday.
No, I don't know. I have not drunk anything except for a little coffee. I've not taken any booze, anything. That people believed that you were either a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. Actually, no, you were born. Your mind was born the way it was, and it was not able to grow, type of thing. I'm paraphrasing. And this lady in her 1970s, did this study, Carol Dweck, Dweck. She uncovered that people do have the ability to not have a fixed mindset, meaning this is how you were born, this is how your brain functions, but also the opportunity for a growth mindset, which was pretty interesting. That one, it's a lady that discovered that, right? Yay for women. The other thing is only in the 1970s that she started to shift the ideas about how our mind worked, and that you actually can grow your mindset. So, and it's kind of like what we do all the time, but it's very interesting to me that to learn that today.
Yeah, and that, you bring up a good point about, is it, are you born with it or not? And maybe we are born with that, but at the same time, I think a lot of it has to do with your nurturing
Mm-hmm.
versus your nature. And maybe, you've come from a family of this fixed mindset where everybody is kind of stuck, where, and they just have this, okay, this is the way things go and there's no changing it. But I know for myself, like, I feel like I had more of the, I didn't have that fixed mindset. I never did. I was never one of those, people. But I could see in my family, it was, you went to school, you went to college, you got a job, and you just worked, 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 worked. But my mine was always, there's more. There's more. There's places to go. There's places to grow. And for me, it was never just being in that stuck state, I guess you could say, because I always felt that there's more. And the only way that you're going to find that more is to grow.
That is so true. I love that, Debbie, because same with me. And it was always the words from the elders around me was like, oh, that's just the way it is. It's okay. You tried. And that's just like that's a fixed mindset, right?
Yeah.
And just like you shared, we may have thought that we were born with it, but it's the conditions, right? It's our environment and what we learned either by someone telling us directly, or hearing that in the spaces that we were in, or just how people the actions around us, right? Like, how did the adults function? What did you learn from that, right? Because we know as moms today, we know our kids definitely learn more about what we do versus what we say, because they're like, yeah, what does mom know? Like, she's just an old lady, right? um you know what I mean? I thought the adults didn't know anything when I was growing up, so I know my son does too. He's just like, whatever, you adults like take things too seriously. It's not that serious. But it's also, I love that it's the opportunities, because I thought for a very long time, Debbie, that how I thought was just something only inside of me. And I only learned, even though I've heard of hope in the past, this past year, it really was the hope of something different. Yeah. Versus the current situation that I was in. I was like, this can't be it. Is this all that there is? And through my journaling, through, go out to the street, don't come home till the lights come home, allow me to just think differently. Even though I grew up in a very small town, I did not know as a kid that that is what I was doing. And it was just that hope for something more. There has to be something more. And just that little bit of hope, which sometimes you could say it's not little, because hope can be really big.
Right.
That's a growth mindset, right? It's being open to that.
Yes. And you think about, sometimes you said that about a little small town. Think about the people that never leave their little small towns, but still have that, but what's outside?
Mm-hmm.
What I wonder what's on the other side of my little town borders. So I think it goes back to that whole wanting more, and realizing that there is more. You just have to go out and have that mindset of finding it.
Exactly. I love it. I love it. And when I think back, because a lot of my experiences, and like many other people, even like Debbie may have experienced that, or anyone on this who listens to the replay or here now, a lot of things that make us who we are today is what we've experienced as a child growing up in those early developmental years. And many of us, if you're in your 50s like us, we didn't have these conversations, right? We were never there was no conversations. You couldn't ask adults questions. You only can answer once they ask you a question. There was no talk of these things, right? It wasn't an open dialogue. There was no social media, all these things. And so a lot of it was what we imagined in our heads, right? With our own self, pretend playing, whatever we did to survive, not knowing that we were surviving. So when I look back, I was just surviving. I was living, but I didn't think I was going through a traumatic situation, even though, losing parents and being abused, all that stuff is traumatic. But when you're a kid, you may not understand the complexities and the depth of it. And so I just lived life, right? And um, thinking about our subject today, setbacks can really elevate your mindset. I I was doing that without knowing I was doing that. And I only say that because as children, sometimes we just learn to survive, right? We don't know,
Mhm.
maybe we're surviving because we're just living, right? We were told to do this and we're just doing that because we don't want to get in trouble. We want to make sure we have tablet time, whatever the case may be, right? And we're just going and not really knowing that we are actually resilient, that we are strong, that our mind is growing because we're just living.
Yeah, and it goes back to like children should be seen and not heard. And it didn't matter what age you were still the child,
Yes.
and you just didn't talk about things. You didn't ask questions. You didn't, you didn't ask things that were going through your mind. So a lot of times it had to stay in your mind. And I know for me, a big way to escape and to realize a lot about the outside world was reading. I loved to read, and it didn't matter what book it was, it just took me out of where I was. So, I liked more of the adventure books and stuff like that. So it took me out and realized there's a whole other world out there.
Mhm.
Like my dad was afraid of flying, so we never flew anywhere. Anywhere we could go, it had to be a drive, and it only was a certain amount of hours. So I never really got to explore the world. And since more recent years, I mean, I've gone to Egypt, I've gone to Spain, I've gone from one side of the United States to the other side of the United States, and it's a whole new world. But you have to also be able to take that chance. And we're going to get into a whole setback thing right now, and see where you could take those setbacks and turn them into opportunities for learning.
I love that. My escape was really journaling, getting my thoughts on my piece of paper. Plus, that I trusted a piece of paper. Like, however bizarre that sounds at my age, it was my trusted spot. I wasn't judged. I could say what I want. I could speak what I want, and it was mine. And I know that that saved my mindset. But I love that you shared, Debbie, because Steve Harvey has shared that many times that when he was a kid, he read books, right? And they were traveling books. Back in the day, they had the traveling maps. They didn't have Google Maps.
Yeah.
Everything was not digital. It was all paper. There was maps that he studied, or adventure books that he studied, that took him out of, like, okay, well, this is a possibility. And like I said, it's just that one thing of hope, right? That we have outside of what we know life is at the moment. So I love that. So let's get into like setbacks and how they can elevate our mindset and for growth and stuff. So Debbie, you start.
Sure. Well, I know for me that, you coming along and you're doing something, and then you might have something that set you back, or maybe you got all the way to the end and it was a failure. Having a positive mindset, you look for the lessons in it. And when you find those lessons, okay, well, I'm going to try this again, but I'm going to change this, or I'm going to change that. Or you find where you need to do some things different. And don't let setbacks be your holdback. Because
Mm,
if you don't let things hold you back, you're going to get there eventually. It may be baby steps. You may have a few setbacks. You may have a few failures along the way. The important thing is never to give up. And when you have that passion inside of you, and you really feel that you need to get your message out, or you need to spread the word, or you need to, just be heard, you're not going to stop. And you shouldn't stop. It doesn't matter who shoots you down, who thinks that you're woo woo, or whatever the case may be, or they're like, well, why are you talking about this? Why am
mm,
I talking about it? I'm talking about it because nobody else is, but they need to be. So as
right.
long as you stick to it and you get the lessons from the setbacks and the failures, you're just going to skyrocket.
I love that. I think that is, I think that's probably like the biggest thing, right? Is the setbacks, right? Because they are, if you think back, the lessons, right? There's a gift, and something educational that you can learn from. And I don't personally actually look at anything as failure until Mary Kim decides to give up. And
Right.
if I really want something, I may put it on the back burner. I may shove it underneath the bed. I may
Yeah.
throw it in the trash, right, for a moment. But I'm not giving up on those things that I want. And I say all the time, if there is something that you desire and you want, and it keeps popping up, it is yours. Like, you got to own it. Like, if you had a setback because you tried something and something life altering happened, put it down to the side, right?
Yep.
Keep it there. Don't throw it out. Don't give up. It's not a failure until you decide to give up on yourself, right? And at the end of the day, setbacks, you can easily, it's easy. It's so easy to be like, I give up. I'm done, right? Because it takes a positive mindset. But also, when it's a setback, do just as Debbie said, like, look into it. Did you learn something from it? Was there something, like, when you look back and you're being honest with yourself? A key thing is to be honest. Like, what really happened? Did I really make that right decision? Because a lot of us, we can look back on situations in our life like, oh, I knew I should not have said that, or I knew I should have done this instead of that, right? And it's just a reflection. It's not like to hold you back, like you said, Debbie, or stop you. It's to empower you more so that when you continue forward, you got it, right? Like, you learn that thing, because I really believe everything that we do is just like the pathway to where you're going. And I can look back, and some people like, how are you grateful that you've gone through X, Y, and Z? I'm like, I am. I'm not me without all of that, right? And I'm not me if I didn't learn those lessons. But it took me decades to figure this out, like, that I was learning a lesson through all these, are you serious, God? Like, are you kidding me? Like, why? Right?
Right.
It was that moment when I learned the lesson. I was like, I get it, right? Not that I'm like, oh, give me more, but you get what I'm saying, Debbie.
Yeah, and sometimes those lessons and things keep coming back around because you didn't get the lesson. And until you get that lesson, the situation's still gonna keep happening. The setbacks are still gonna keep happening until you learn the lesson. And the only true way to fail is to stop trying.
Yes.
And when you stop trying, then you can truly say you failed. But as long as you keep on going and you allow those lessons to come from those setbacks, and you keep on trying, eventually you are going to get to where you want to go. I mean, think about people on the road with a tire. Tires. You get a flat tire. Is that a setback? It is. You change the tire, you keep on going, and you're going to get to your destination. It just may be a little later than you planned, but you didn't give up and sit on the side of the road and say, oh, I guess I'm going to just stay here for the rest of my life because I'm not going anywhere. Change your tire and you keep on going.
Right. I love that. I think when there's a setback, there is a grieving, right? There's a pissed off moment. There's a sad moment. There's a disappointment moment. I've always say, like, sit in it, right? Sit in those feelings, acknowledge those feelings, right? Because they're real, right? They are how you feel, and it's okay. But acknowledge it, wipe off the dust, pick yourself up, go take a shower, wipe off the tears, whatever it is, and get back up, right? If you are still living today, it's not the end, right? It's not a failure. It's just a setback. And if you think, okay, so the first thing I think about when I'm talking about setbacks, Debbie, is that I think of little kids, right? When they're wanting to learn to crawl, to walk, they're just ambitious. They're going to keep getting up. They can fall a zillion times. It doesn't matter. They can skin their knee. It doesn't matter. They're getting back up. They're being resilient without even knowing what resilience means. And they keep getting up because it's like, oh, I got this. I'm almost there. I fell. I'm going to get back up, right? They don't even look twice or think twice. Like, I'm not getting up because I sat on my bum a zillion times. I rolled over and like bumped my head, or I couldn't figure out how to maneuver my crawling thing, whatever the case may be. Kids don't think that. They just keep going. Right. And eventually they're walking, right? And sometimes I remember my son, he tried it for a little bit and we kept moving back a little longer distance, and he did not give up. And before you know, he got it. Like, he would walk like 5 or 10 steps. They don't stop. And sometimes we have to look at ourselves like that little girl or a boy and think back, because there was a moment that we remember that we didn't stop and we got the thing that we wanted, right? But life happens sometimes. But also, if you were talking to a young child today and they came to you with, hey, Debbie, blah, blah, blah happened, you wouldn't be like, oh, well, sit your butt down and just don't worry about it. You're like, no, get back up, right? Like, right. We have to kind of talk to ourselves the same way, and we don't all the time. I'm guilty of that too.
Yeah, and myself included, because as we grow older and we let those doubts creep in, like you're saying with the kids, they don't really have doubts. They're like, I'm just going to keep on going. I'm just going to keep on trying this. I'm going to, because they don't get into their own head. They don't have those self doubt thoughts yet. And they get there because they have just that tenacity to keep going and going and going. And I think somewhere along the way, as we get older, people have come along and said, oh, you can't do that. You
Mm,
can't do that. And
mhm.
then when we get to a point and we hit that setback or that failure, we think of, oh, yeah, I really can't do that. And we have to stop it. Get back to that little kid trying to crawl, that didn't have the doubt, that didn't play over and over in their head about, well, I'm never going to be able to do this, so I'm going to quit. No, don't do that. Keep going. Have that mindset of, I'm going to get there.
I,
Like a little engine then that could chug 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 chug,
yeah,
eventually got to his definite, and that's what we have to look at it as. Let's not let these little things that set us back hold us back.
and it's the mindset, right? It's what mindset, it's what I all the time, it's like not only what other people have said to us, said what our abilities were or were not, we're also receiving that. We're choosing to say that this is because Debbie said this, because my mom didn't say that makes me who I am. BS, right? Like, enough. It's time to take the trash out, right? Like, take all those things and just toss it in the trash. And I know a lot of people, they may use, like, they'll write things down, like, oh, my mom said whatever, they'll write down, and they crumple it up and they burn it. Like, whatever you need to do, but take the trash out. Get it out of your vocabulary. If you are living today and breathing, and you got up today, like, there's no time. There's no, like, stop being your worst critic is really, at the end of the day. Stop being your worst critic.
Right. And when somebody tells you these things too, you have to think about it too. Are they telling you you can't
Mm,
do it because you can't do it, or because they can't do it?
yeah.
So they're projecting their feelings about themselves onto you. And that's the other thing. So you have to be really careful who you listen to and who you seek advice from, or who you surround yourself with when it comes to, having that growth mindset. You're not going to want to hang around with people that don't have that mindset, because guess what? You're going to stay stuck like them. So you have to be around bigger thinkers and people that may have even gotten there already. Sit there, have conversations with them, learn from them. And then when you do hit those sitbacks, the sitbacks. But when you hit the setbacks, you do want to sit back and, like you said, get in those emotions, see why you're feeling that way, find out why this is stopping you, address it. Because when you can take that time and address your emotions and go through the feelings, the next time you get to a similar situation, if you get to a similar situation, you're going to say, I know this feeling and it's not true.
I love it. You're giving yourself the permission, right, to decide, right? And then also writing it down. I think you shared earlier as well, Debbie. Writing it down allows you. So when the next time it comes around, right? Because you wrote it down, you can go back to that space, because sometimes we forget. Like, we put it in the back of our head and we forget something happened, right? We forget the tools that we used beforehand. So writing it down is key. Like, put it in your date book, put it in, like, your work folder, whatever it is. So when you're thinking, like, oh wait, no, I did this before, right? I got through this and this is the tools that I used, right? Because sometimes we get so lost in the sitting back, right?
Yeah.
That we get lost in that and we forget what we've overcome already, or that we had a similar situation, and we can always learn from that. So I love that you share that. It's so important, because you do have that power, right? Like, we just have to give ourselves the tools to move forward, to continue to move forward, because life will be lifing, and as whether you work for yourself, if you're building your business, or you work for someone else, crap's gonna happen. Even if you're not an entrepreneur, you work for someone else. Trust me, right? If you worked from anyone, I'm sure there was one point or another where you had a boss or a coworker who was just a donkey in all aspects, right? Like, and you had to manage, right? Because otherwise you get fired. You need that paycheck. It's the same thing with entrepreneurship. It's the people you surround yourself with, and, like, what are you telling yourself? So I love that. go around people who've done it. There's this thing that's going around like, don't ask the person who's never been, let's say you want a purse maker, right? Don't ask your aunt who's only knitted crocheted hats, how do you make purses, right? Would you ask her? But we tend to ask people these things in our lives because we value their opinion. We love them. We've been friends with them X amount of times, but they have no clue.
Right.
Not that makes them less, right? But like Debbie said, be around people who've done what you've done, be in their spaces, ask them the questions, because most successful people, if not all, want to share how they got there because they were once in your shoes. And today with social media, I mean, you could find anyone as an expert in any field that you want to be in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have the wide world web.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too, like, and actually Grant Cardone's the one that says it the most is, if you can't afford to be in the room, find a way to get into that room, even if you're serving everybody water. And it's so true because, maybe you don't have the finances or the capabilities of being in the room as a guest. But if you're in there, you're still hearing the conversation. So find a way to be a fly on the wall and be in those rooms around the successful people so that you too can be successful and learn.
I love that. I want to add, when you said that, Debbie, the first thing I thought about, so back in the day, they had the acid wash jeans,
Yes.
right? They were a lot of money back then, even though they may have been like $30, but we had 6 kids in the house. My parents are not buying acid wash jeans. You got jeans galore. So we were very creative. We got the bleach in the tub.
Yes.
We did the thing. We did the tie-dye because we weren't getting tie-dye shirts. My parents were not paying for that. We were so innovative because we wanted those things, and we creatively worked to do those things. Whereas adults, we're so used to, well, I'm just going to buy it. If I don't buy it myself using the money, I can't get it. So I love that you share that, like, get in the room. But also, like, nowadays, there's a lot of things you can do virtually. Get in the room. Get those free courses. Get those free insights of what anyone is sharing. Take all the notes.
Yes.
If you take all the notes, right? And if you're able to get the replay and continue to take all the notes, go to whatever page they say to check out, and you apply those notes, you are like 10 times greater than you were if you didn't even apply them without even buying the course that costs $1,500 after or whatever. A lot of times they'll give you enough nuggets in those free virtual things, or even if you get into the space, right, to apply. If you apply it, you're that much greater along. And when you're in those spaces, be prepared, meaning, be professional, right? Because if you're in those spaces, it's a professional environment. Don't act like a donkey, right? Introduce yourself, be friendly, and be like a worker bee, right? Just getting along, introducing yourself, asking the questions. Don't be a fly in the wall, literally. Just be in the space.
Yeah, and I say as far as that goes too, dress the part. Dress the way you want to be, not to where you are. So if you want to be a very successful business person that wears all these fancy designer clothes, show up in those clothes as if you've already arrived, because that does change your mindset as well. The one thing I will say though, on the free stuff, yes, get in it, but do your research. Make sure that this person is somebody of reputation. Make sure you're reading the reviews, and not the reviews that are on their website. Just Google them. You can Google everybody now, and you can see what other people are saying, good or bad, not what they want you to see on their website. So again, you still have to be cautious, even with the free stuff. Make sure that you're doing your due diligence and researching who that person is. Is it somebody you want to align yourself with? Is it somebody that has your core values, or is it just a scam artist who thinks he knows the world and can tell you that?
I love that. Oh, yeah. That's such a great tip, because, and who they aligned with, right? Who's supporting, right? What companies back them up? It's the reputation that they have, right? And do you want to get knowledge from that person? Because there are a lot of people who take other people's courses and classes and claim it their own. Like, actually, there's this big thing that I just heard today that the way Chat GPT is, right? New AI, not a new AI tool, it's kind of old now, but it's one of the ones that people talk about the most, is that there are people who obviously they take all the information and they separate it for whatever you're asking them to do, right? This is basically Chat GPT. And so there's lawsuits now against Chat GPT because, I'm well known, right? And so Chat GPT got my information because Debbie asked a question about empowering women. And so I found out now Debbie's using it, but now it's my stuff that you're sharing to someone else for free, right? There's like this, I don't know what it's like, some kind of law, but that's happening. So I say that because it's even in that world, right? Be mindful of where you're getting information from. Is it valid? Is it from that person? Who's backing them up? And this goes whether you're just taking the information in a virtual class or paying someone money.
Sorry, I forgot to turn off that alarm to pick up my child. But
okay. We're almost done.
But yeah, no, it's okay. I have somebody taking him anyway.
Oh, okay.
I'm picking him up. I said to him Mondays I can't, but it's set for Monday through Friday.
Got it.
Totally off topip. Yeah, and
hey, mom life. We do
yeah, mom life be lifing, be mom lifing. So yeah, and you brought up a good point because there are a lot of people too that take creators stuff even outside of the world of AI and they try to sell it as their own. And to me, that takes away from your credibility. So, like for myself, yes, I have used ChatGPT for outlines, but then everything else that I do after that is, it comes from my own knowledge. Like I will find just, like an outline just so that I can spark my memory of, or, spark ideas or maybe not miss out on something I wanted to talk about, but didn't because I forgot. And then I'm going back saying, oh, I should have talked about that. So I'll ask it for an outline pretty much, but then everything else that I write, and even when I do these lives or any kind of room where I'm speaking, an audio room, whether it's this, I may have like bullet notes, and even now I have nothing. We just said, what is the topic? And we're just rolling with it. I do much better if I just come from my brain and knowledge. Plus, for me, I just feel more authentic that way. I don't like to read from a piece of paper. I don't want to read from a piece of paper. To me, when I'm speaking, you're getting from my heart and my brain. That's it. It's not from any AI. It's not from any book. It's just what's rolling around up here.
Exactly. It's our own life experiences, right? And that's what you get from setbacks, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that is what we all get from any setback. It doesn't have to be what my setback was or what Debbie was. Anything. Like, let's say you had plans to go hang out with some friends, right? And you got the babysitter, you got the babysitting money, you got the person who's going to stay at night to watch your kid, and there's a big snowstorm and everything's shut down, right? You're disappointed, right? That's a setback. Like, I was looking to go out. I needed some time away from my kid. Like, I just need to go, like, my life before mom for like 2 hours. That's a setback, right?
It is.
And then the setbacks can be very devastating too when you get a call and you lose someone in your life or whatever, like very traumatic. So a setback has no I'm going to say value or definition based on extreme. I don't know, but like I think you know what I mean.
Yeah, a setback can be anything. It may not even be business related. Maybe you're going along, your business is going great, but then you have something happen in your family and you have to give your attention to that. That's a setback. But it's the way you approach it, and you may have that setback, but realize that's only going to be temporary. You can move forward from it. You have to, again, we go back to sitting in those emotions, dealing with that so that you can refocus yourself and keep moving forward.
Absolutely. And that goes into what we shared earlier, really. It's like live in the emotion, right? Because the setbacks, like we said, it could be something really silly at the end of the day, like hanging out with your friends, right? But it's mentally, it's like big, right? Or losing someone, right? All of that comes with any array of emotions, right? So definitely what we shared earlier is like sit in the emotions, own it, process it, figure out like, is there a lesson, a blessing, or a gift, right? Every setback has something different. And what are you learning from that? And that goes from grief to mad, sad, upset, disappointed, right? Like we shared earlier. And then also write those things down, like Debbie shared earlier. Write down what you learned, right? Because it's a reminder not only to what you experienced, but also when you forget, if something happens somewhere, you can go back to that notebook or wherever you put your stuff and just remind yourself, right? Like, oh, I remember, oh yeah, I did this, that's right, I did do this, and this is what I did, right? Because sometimes even though we've gone through it, and like Debbie said, she shares from her heart and what she's known from her own experience, I do too. And even though I know what I've gone through, sometimes in the midst of the storm or the setback that I'm trying to muster through, I forget, like, what did I use to get through this, right? And so it's just a faster process, I want to say, versus like keep thinking like, how did I get through this? And when you have it written down, so just like empower yourself through those things is it's great.
Yeah, and don't forget too, we talk about people and who you listen to. Sometimes people come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lesson. So if somebody is part of your life now, that doesn't mean they're going to be part of your life in a year, but just look for why were they there? And if they disappear, why did they disappear? What did I learn? What was the reason? What was the lesson? So I think that that's important too. And one thing that I do when I'm writing as well is if I'm in an emotion and I'm feeling an emotion about maybe somebody, a particular person or instance, I will write a letter as if I'm writing to them to get everything out of my mind, and then I'll either tuck it away somewhere, throw it out, burn it, rip it up, but at least it's out of my head. And I've visited my emotions. I dealt with my emotions because I wrote that letter. And then it's kind of like, poof, off it went.
I love it. I love it. I shared that earlier. Like once I write something down, it's out of my head. Like it's not taking space anymore. I need my brain space for other things. So I love that you share that. And some people do. They'll toss it or they'll throw it out or they'll keep it, right? I'm a keeper. I'm keeping all my stuff. But whatever works for you, right? Because we need that brain space, right? We need those healthy thoughts in our heads, those positive mindsets, because life be lifing, work be working, and all those things, right? It's just what we have to do. So the more tools that we can utilize to help us in a more positive growth mindset, the better that we are as human beings, not only to ourselves, but everyone around us, because people are watching, whether they're in person or not. They're always watching us, especially our kids and the surroundings that we put ourselves in.
Yeah, and that's true too, because people are always watching and they may not like your stuff, they may not comment, but I've been out numerous times in my neighborhood and somebody will say, "Hey, I saw that post the other day." And I'm like, "Oh, but I know that they didn't comment or like
Right.
it."
Yeah.
And they'll say, "I love what you're doing," or just something. And so the whole point is you never know who's watching, you never know who's listening, and not in a negative way. I mean, we're all going to have those nosy people that just want to see you fail, but you never know when you're impacting somebody because maybe they don't want to like or share or comment or anything because they're embarrassed or they don't want people to know that they're feeling that way or they have those emotions. Or so you just never know. And when you get out there like me and MaryKim do, it's to create a safe space. It's to create an environment that everybody feels safe. And if you want to comment, I mean, we'll go back to the comments later because you can't really see them now. But if you comment or have questions, we'll go back to them. And if you don't feel comfortable putting them in a public forum, you could always message either one of us privately.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that thing that you just shared, Debbie, happened this weekend. I was in a clubhouse space this weekend and we were just talking about different things and I shared something and I didn't even know this person was in this space. And I went into this maybe an hour or so later, I went to another clubhouse room and I was listening in there. I just popped in the room and the person who heard me earlier in the morning said something like, "I was in that space when you shared X, Y, and Z, and you don't know how much that affected me." And I've gotten those messages too on just me just posting what I post, right? And I got private messages from people on Facebook saying like, "Listen, this really resonated with me. Like you're so positive, you're so this." I'm like, I post those things because I need them.
Yes.
I need my reminders, and I'm so glad that you received it as well, right? And so like Debbie said, most of us we share because we need it or it's something that we just believe in. And it's just to hope like maybe someone else needs it, right? And that's just making a better, more world that we live in.
Right. And you never know who needs to hear your message, and you never know who's going to relate to you and maybe feeling the same way, but just is afraid to speak up about it or speak out about it, or, or maybe they're just feeling alone and like they're the only one going through it. So we never know what our messages or how our messages or who our messages are going to touch. So the point is saying them, talking about them, and getting those messages out there so that we can reach the people that need to hear us and that want to hear us, and that, well, everybody wants to hear us, but but that need to hear us, or maybe need to hear the message, or maybe need to feel like they're not alone. And eventually maybe they will reach out because they realize, you know what, I've heard them talking so many times and I just feel safe.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you are never one to want to be on a platform where you say anything about your life, um, we both are a safe space. Find yourself a safe space, whatever that looks like. Um, and that's okay. You don't need to be the vocal person, right? Not everyone has that drive or that ambition. Doesn't make you less than anyone else. It's just not where you're at. At the end of the day, just be who you are, but also own where you're at, and surround yourself with good people, right? Who want to inspire you, who see you for you, and places that you feel safe. And a setback is only was it a comeback? Setbacks the
Yeah,
start of a
yeah, the setback, you have it. Oh, must have setbacks to make the comeback.
yeah.
But and I also wanted to bring up a fact, because I know that mostly we talk to women, but men, listen to this message right now. It is okay to ask for help. And I know that men in general, it's just their nature. They don't want to ask for help. It's okay to ask for help. It's not a sign of weakness at all. It's a sign of, okay, you know what? I got to this point, but I'm at a point where I need help. That does not make you a weak person. To me, that makes you brave, because most men won't talk about their feelings. Most men won't reach out for help. So for me, in my eyes, that makes you even stronger than people would admit to, because it's not a sign of weakness that you need help. It's a sign of, I've gotten to a point that I can get myself to, but I just need that extra help to bring me further.
I love that. Many of us have grown up thinking that, especially in the men, that
Mhm.
if you ask for help, if you show emotion, you're weak, you're less than. That is an old stigma. I want to say that it's not true. It's not true at all. It actually is super brave for anyone. I mean, even me, I have a hard time asking for help. I'm
That's me
that-
too.
and it was that it's that environment that I grew up in, like not being able to trust fully. I'm getting better, but it doesn't make me weak, right? It doesn't make anyone weak. It's actually really brave and strong to say, listen, I don't have all the answers, because you know what? No one does.
Nobody
I
does.
think the only person that has all the answers is whoever you believe created you, right? That is the only person, spiritual, however you look at it, that has all the answers. The rest of us, we're just human beings. We
Yep.
don't have all the answers, and that's okay. That's how we are made, and you are not less than if you ask. So I love that you brought that up. That's super super important.
Yeah, it's just humanity. I mean, and for men and women that are afraid to speak up or ask for help, it's human nature. We are not meant to go through life alone. We're not. So when you speak up and you ask for the help, or you look for advice, or you show your emotions, we're human. It is not a sign of weakness, whether you're a man or a woman, to show your emotions and to ask for help. We are meant to help each other. We are not meant to go through life alone.
Absolutely. And then it's going to take me back to how we started. Think back, like, any child, right? They ask a zillion questions, the why, especially, like a zillion times. We don't put them down. We don't think they're weak. We think they're a little annoying. Like, okay, why do you keep asking the why, right? But we don't say, like, oh, you're dumb for asking. We never heard that. Even in school, when you think back, most teachers were like, they encourage you to ask the question. Or when you go to
Questions.
college, ask the question, right? I want you to ask the question. Same thing that I do with my advocacy with my son. Ask the question. Don't assume, right? Ask the question. At the end of the day, ask the question. Take the lessons and surround yourself and do your research. Like, that's my tips, Debbie. What do you want to add? I know you have so much stuff.
No, just the same thing. Do the research, ask for the help. Um, just surround yourself with the people that are doing the things you want to do, and be an advocate for yourself. Ask for help.
I love it.
Think about it.
I got the phrase right. This one phrase, like, what, one step back, two steps forward.
Yeah.
So just take the one step back, you go double ahead. So loving this conversation. Thank you, Debbie, for joining us, and whoever's listening every Monday at 11 a.m. And definitely, like we said earlier, if you want to be on here as a guest, reach out to either one of us. We want to just continue to spread. And there's things that we don't know that we need to talk about, right?
Yes.
That you're an expert in, or something that you've gone through. Let's spread the word. This is how we make the ripple effect. This is how we affect one person, and that person gets affected, and it's a whole domino effect. So yeah, this has been great. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you, everyone. Debbie, anything else you want to before we go? I can be found anywhere, all social platforms, MaryKim Farkas. And Debbie, take it away.
Yes, and I can be found on all social media as Debbie D. Waba.
Awesome. Thank you, lady. Thank you, men. Anyone's listening, yeah, definitely tap in. And if you have a subject that you are possibly experiencing and want more information on, definitely message us. We'll either research it ourselves or get an expert to chime in. So we definitely just want to continue making an impact. So do the same, be positive, and a setback is only another way for you to elevate in your life.
Yes, I agree. Setbacks are for comebacks.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.